This is the top discussion, and please keep your responses going, because we'll take all your responses and we assure you that in the next 24 hours, we'll send all your responses, each and every one of them, to the Civil Aviation Minister, Viola Ravi. On the panel tonight, I have with me in the studio former Director of Operations of Air India, D.S. Datta, in the studio tonight. Also with me in the studio is Jitendra Bhargav, was former Executive Director with Air India. Captain Gopinath, CMD Deccan Cargo Aviation Pioneer, is also joined tonight by Air Marshal P.S. Ahluwalia, former Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief from Delhi. We also have Air Marshal Denzel Keela with us tonight. Kapil Kaul of the Center for Asia Pacific Aviation is also joined tonight by H.S. Kola, former DGCA. Gentlemen, with your expertise, we hope to get an answer to a basic question tonight. That have passengers become guinea pigs? The first question to you, Jitendra Bhargav, you've been part of the system till recently. Spill the beans. What's going on?
You see, what we are witnessing is very unfortunate. And like in every other aspect of our life, corruption, greed.
Please come to the point. No, please come to the point. No. We see, yeah. That answer is infructuous. Please explain to me, since you are not being detailed, my question to you is this.
Okay.
There is a pilot who displays fear of aircraft and gets expelled from training in the United States of America. She gets a license within 5 days of applying in India. Her father happens to be the Director Air Safety at the DGCA.
This is exactly what I'm saying. The systems aren't working. If you have the influence, the right contacts, you can get away with murder. And this is what is it. It was a straight case of rejection. You couldn't have gone ahead, nor could the parents would have been said, I'm not going to allow my child to go ahead because she's going to risk so many lives. So you have just gone because the personal greed has got the better of every other aspect of good life.
You're saying all of this after leaving Air India.
No, but let me explain to you. If you go by my history, let me, Arnav, you raised a very valid point.
Sir?
I can produce documentary evidence that even while I was in Air India, I was the lone voice of sanity.
Sir, let me tell you here that the pilot arrested, Captain Verma, forged mark sheets. He's been with Air India since 1989. He's been flying for 22 years. And I only wonder if there had been a crash, then we would have gone and said, oh my God, this is the reason why we forgot to scrutinize the facts. Let me get your take first, Mr. Datta.
Well,
is it as easy as that?
Yes, let me tell you that. In our time, when we say it's good old times, you see, this is a purely operations matter, and I am quite fully qualified in commenting on it, because the ALTP issuance requires two requirements. The first is the technical knowledge of the aircraft and the rules and regulations, and the second is the flying skill. The flying skill is done by a flight instructor in a flying aeroplane, whereas the exam takes place in a classroom. Now, in this particular case, we have come to know that they have filed the mark sheets. Now, one thing is very clear from your reports and the reports what we hear on the other news channels is that it cannot be done by one man, A. B, it cannot be done without the inside knowledge. C, it cannot be done unless the person involved is a very high position.
So this is a cartel operating here?
Yes, there is a cartel operating.
It's a cartel operating. You scratch my back.
Absolutely.
And I scratch yours.
Your back. Yes.
And you continue to sit at the DGCA, Captain Gopinath, and my child will fly in a private airline. And when time comes to get your clearances, the private airlines, I will be nice to you. I will lobby for you in the Ministry of Civil Aviation, because we are one happy family. Who cares? Who cares if hundreds of people die in a crash overnight? We'll look at the causes later. Isn't that the attitude that's prevalent, Captain Gopinath?
No, I don't think the airline will compromise, because the airline can go bankrupt if the aircraft crashes. But obviously, there could be circumstances where there is a nexus, which obviously it is. I know, as Datta said, there is a flying skill where he passes and he fails the exam, and then he pays and passes the exam. Obviously, it is a serious offence.
No, sir.
And they should be put to jail or put in jail, because it's an issue of life and death. So we need to strengthen at two levels, strengthen the system to ensure that corruption cannot take place by bringing about systemic changes. One is at the flying school itself, because except for I think 2 or 3 flying schools, most of the flying schools are private flying schools.
No.
and hundreds
Captain
of thousands of
Gopinath.
students now are.
Captain Gopinath, what we need to do perhaps is to nail down one case, because when you nail down one case, you will find out what the problem is. So this is one case of this lady, Miss Pussy. She fails the test in the US. She comes and gets training from an Amber Aviation in Uttarakhand. 1 minute. Then she gets a commercial pilot's license from the DGCA, where her father is Director Air Safety, within 5 days. And immediately after that, she gets inducted into SpiceJet and flies a Boeing 737-800 as a co-pilot. You know, systemic changes is fine, but don't we need to fix some, who are the culprits in this case?
Well, definitely, that's exactly why I said, if there are guilty people, they should be put in jail, because it's a question of life and death. But having said that, I'm also telling that, there should be systemic changes, at a couple of levels. One is the flying school itself. When a person gets a flying license, there could be laxity there in getting the license, because there are a lot of private flying schools which can issue license with lower standards. So you need to strengthen that.
So who's allowed all of this to carry on?
These exams, and we have already made a request long ago that the regulator should not be the person
sorry to
who
interrupt. Let me go to
exam.
Sorry to interrupt. Let me get Denzel Keela here. One second question, sir.
The regulator.
Yes.
The regulator should not be conducting the exams. There should be an independent body to conduct the exams, and the regulator himself, that is the policeman, should not be the judge. The regulator should be independent of the body which conducts the exams.
So
you need to bring about drastic systemic changes.
Sir, this is so widespread. Let me get you Denzel Keela. This is so widespread. There are cases where airlines have hired pilots with flying skills that are not up to the mark. They continuously fail the tests, and they continuously get more chances to continue. So this is obviously an extreme scam, Denzel Keela. Who are we going to fix blame on? That's my question to you. Let me get Marshal Keela. Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There are 2 or 3 points which have emerged after this discussion. First is whether it is good to have a child or relative of the DGCA or the airline flying. And the second one is the question of certification. We take the second one first. The DGCA is mandated to issue a license of any pilot, not whether he's a son of somebody or not, for every pilot, only after he's satisfied that he meets the requirements as laid down in the Aircraft Act, aircraft rules. Now, in this particular case, obviously, this has not been done. And if it's not been done, the DGCA, who's responsible for issuing the license, has, in this particular case, cleared a pilot who is not fit to fly. If this amounts to endangering the lives of the passengers, and under the Aircraft Act, you can be criminally charged and get 7 years RI. That's number one. Number two, whether the pilot was a son of the DGCA or son of an airline pilot, the question is it applies to everybody. But certainly, the relative has greater leverage with the DGCA. But everybody has leverage, let me put it that way. Everybody has leverage and uses it from time to time, including politicians. And in this particular case, it so happened that it was relative of the DGCA.
So this is generally, there is a view,
That's what my view is.
Kapil Kaul, the view here is that there is a cozy cartel which has started operating in civil aviation. The minister, private airlines, people who run airline, airports. Therefore, it extends to pilots. Therefore, it extends to bureaucrats. And the bureaucrat says, if there's so much corruption going on between private airlines and the ministry, etc., what's the harm if my child flies an airline after failing a test? Is this a fact or not, Kapil Kaul?
Well, Arnav, first is that I think, as most of the participants at your show have voiced, this is a very serious issue. Beyond rhetoric, I would think that all of us would believe that it's a case of criminal culpability if such incidents are not thoroughly investigated. But I must also point that it's not perhaps for the first time such issues have come up. It's basically that the media is highlighting it now. I think previously also that at DGCA such incidents have come across to the notice of the DGCA, but fortunately, I think they had the resources that time to check with the flying schools or wherever the trainings have been done and do checks and balances and take administrative action. But over the last 4 or 5 years, with the number of requirement for pilots, maintenance professionals or cabin crew are so huge.
No, that's not the reason.
That I don't think there is any systemic sort of process inside the DGCA which focuses on these issues.
No, but why?
I must tell you, I think
Kapil,
whilst I said,
Kapil, why are you?
Kapil,
one second, Kapil, why are you hesitating?
It's a serious issue.
No, why are you hesitating? Are you saying why are you hesitating to actually name the issue where it is? If you nail the issue is one of corruption and nepotism. I'm asking you today, let me ask you, what should the Director Air Safety, what should the Director Air Safety, whose daughter failed a test and then got herself cleared from the DGCA where he's a Director Air Safety and is now flying with SpiceJet, what should the Director Air Safety do? Should he resign? Should he take responsibility? Well, should he be part of the cleanup? Take a position.
I would think, if you hear me what I was saying, and I will come to your point as well, is that once you actually have this kind of issue has come to the public, it needs a very decisive action. And more important, I would think that we should not just leave it at the pilots who have submitted fake licenses. We need to go deeper into finding the systemic issues and take decisive action against anyone.
I'm simply
anyone who is responsible, whether it is the air safety or any other issues.
No, 1 second. What should be done against the entire DGCA top brass, which has its children nicely recruited as pilots and other staff in private airlines, many of them as pilots? Let me get Air Marshal Ahluwalia on this. Air Marshal, what is your view on this scam? I don't find people taking a sharp position on an issue tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for getting me in. I think it's very clear that the person or the organization which is responsible for conducting these tests and ensuring the safety vis-a-vis the proficiency of the pilots is the DGCA. DGCA, the executive arm of the Ministry of Civil Aviation. But let's look at the root cause. The root cause obviously is demand and supply. We have not built up the infrastructure, that means made provision for the kind of induction in terms of pilots, in terms of cabin crew, etc., and yet we've gone ahead and bought planes and planes and planes. That is the first issue. The second issue is that these examinations are not valid purely for the reason that they do not have a syllabus. So if you do not have a syllabus, there is no guidelines, unlike what they have in the FAA. So corruption can be induced, corruption can be encouraged. So the first thing they need to do is that the DGCA, for the ATPL tests as well as the other tests that they must have a syllabus, they must have guidelines, they must have some kind of summaries to tell the people how to take it.